Hey there everyone, we are back to working on this Deutz 6006 tractor so we can get this thing ready to do some work. But before this can do some work, I have to do some work. Because in the last video we took apart quite a few things on this machine. We have all the hydraulics off, we have the rear axle open and a few other things going on. So if you don't know what this is all about and you didn't see the previous video, I can recommend you check that out. This thing is already getting its own playlist, so I'm just going to leave a link for that down in the description if you want to check it out. So let's just go right ahead and start putting some of all these things back together so we can hopefully get this out and do some work. So I would like to start this out where we left off the last time, which is getting this little lever for the Diff-Lock back in place. But as I may or may not have already mentioned in the last one, that does give me a little bit of an issue in here. So this lever goes in right over here, but there is no way to get it into that slot while also getting it up and under and into this hole in the shifter fork that it's supposed to sit in. That's because this is a bit of a backwards assembly. You're not really supposed to put this in after the fork. I was only able to get this out because it was already broken, but now that it's one piece, it won't go in. So this means we have to get the shifter fork out of the way, but we can't move it sideways because it's stuck in this groove in the differential housing, so it'll only move that way and that's not going to help me at all. Now, we have to get it up, but it's moving on this shaft back here and that's going all the way through it. So we have to get that shaft out, lift this up, get that in place and put it all back together. So from what I can tell, the end of that shaft is behind that plug right there. So hopefully if I get that out, we can just slide the shaft out of there. But from what I've seen on some drawings and stuff, there's also a spring in there, so we're gonna have to see how much of this comes out. Oh, and by the way, there is also a plug on the opposite side over here, but that's behind the arm for the parking brake. So I'm gonna try the other side first. We got more room over there. You know, honestly, you guys can probably see more than I can from that angle I got you up on there. I don't know if anything is going to just shoot out of here. Doesn't feel like it's under spring tension. No? Huh. I assume we're going to have to undo this bolt down here as well. Another one of those. Okay. So hopefully this is free from that shaft now. Yeah, actually looks like it. Will that move? No. Maybe it just has to rotate a little bit. Oh, feels like it. Yep. That's all it took. Nice. Think that did the trick? Oh yeah. Well, it won't come all the way out. Actually, that doesn't matter. This might be enough. If we get this up under here, just lift it up that little bit. Yes, there we go. Nice, that's all it took. But before we do that, I have to get an O-ring on this little shaft first. Actually, I could just show you this. The old O-ring that I took off it, that had actually been pinched, so it's super thin in one spot. I might actually explain why there was so much greasy, oily stuff up and around the pedal that was attached to this thing on the outside. But I don't think this has ever been out, so this may actually have been pinched all the way back from the factory. Anyway, we're giving it a new one. And then we'll try not to pinch this when we install it. It sure made that groove wide enough. That may actually have been the problem and why it was pinched in the first place. We'll give it plenty of this stuff to help it along. Right. So, gonna get this started in here, and now we have to remember to get the pedal on here as well, because you can't do that after. So, have to get it into that. There. All right. Haha. That feels like the right spot. And now, haha, perfect. All right, now it's all holding on to each other the way it's supposed to. So now, just gotta get this shaft back in place. Don't know how tricky that's gonna be with that spring in there. We're not quite there. I'm at the point where I'm having to fight that spring over on that side. But maybe I can push it just far enough to get the end cap on the outside and use that to just hold it over. See if this is possible. This is a terrible angle to try and push on this. I think I gotta see if I can get up in between here. Huh. Yeah, maybe. Was that it? That was it. Nice. Just like that, we are lined up with this bolt hole. Sweet. Everyone knows you want as many extensions on your torque wrench as possible. That's good enough. Fantastic. Now we just have to get the bolt in the pedal down in there, and this thing should be working again, hopefully. Well, I can't really see what I'm doing, but this is also one of those pointy bolts, so it should also find the hole itself and line itself up. All right, are you ready for this? If I can do this by hand, that is. Oh yeah, look at that. Now we got a functional diff lock on this thing as well. Really cool. Well, who knows how many years this thing has been broken. And actually the Diff-Lock might not even be terribly important for my use of this tractor, so that's why I wasn't really terribly concerned with it in the first place. But it just felt wrong not to fix it now that we were in here anyway, so I'm pretty happy we did. Now I'm gonna go ahead and clean it out as best as I can so we can get some fresh oil in here. Ew. $80 liters of oil. Actually, if we count the stuff that I already put in the engine, we're close to 100 liters for this one oil change. I'm never gonna financially recover from this. I sure hope this is enough. I don't know exactly how much goes into this, so that wasn't even tight. Okay. Anyway, I don't know how much goes into this, so I'm hoping there's a dipstick on this. There is. Nice. But luckily, we don't have to pour it all through that tiny little fill hole. We can just dump it right in here. All right, so I put a little over 45, maybe closer to 50 liters in here, and we are a bit over the full mark, so I actually bought too much gear oil, but that's all right. I'll certainly find a use for that elsewhere. But I'm sure it's been a really long time since this has had so much fresh, clean stuff in it. Also smells like gear oil now, which for those of you who might not know is a terrible smell, but it is supposed to smell like that. The old stuff that was in here didn't smell at all. Check out how it's following that gear up now. Getting all the way up to the top and lubricating that upper bearing. Very nice. This didn't happen before. But that means that we're all done down there. So we can go ahead and get this thing closed back up. Now I've had to make a decision on this hydraulic block that goes on top of that rear axle. Because, well, if you saw the last video, you know this thing just suddenly decided to start working again without me really doing anything other than flushing out the oil and move it around a bit. And I have decided that I just don't think it's worth the time, money, and effort to take this apart any further and replace a bunch of parts that seem to be all right now. Because honestly, getting this off was really not all that difficult or time consuming. So if it stops working again in the future, we'll just take it back off and fix it then. But for now, it's just going back on. So I am just gonna clean it out best I can, get the rest of this dirty oil out of it. Also, there's a few broken bolts and a leaking hydraulic fitting and a few other things we have to attend to. Let's just start with this broken bolt before we try to clean things. Success. Look at all the dirt that there is in this thing. All that black stuff down in there, that is just pure dirt. No wonder the valves are getting stuck on that. Oh, and by the way, there is another filter, but it's inside of this. Well, it's not really a filter, it's more like a screen for the suction port for the hydraulic pump. It's inside that little housing down there. It's gonna be difficult to film, but I'm gonna try and get that out. I can barely get my hand in there. Just have to undo this little metal clip and you can pull it back out that way. It really didn't leave much room for this. Yeah, that is pretty filthy as well. Right, there we are. Good as new. Or maybe not, but good enough. And if you're wondering, it's just brake clean that I'm using. I've been working on this thing for quite a while now. It was actually much more dirty than I thought it was. I've been flushing out layer upon layer of that grimy, dark, muddy dirt. So by now I really am quite convinced that all this dirt is the main cause of the issues with this. It's just been clogging things up and blocking the valves, making them stick. But look at the difference that made. It's all nice and squeaky clean in there now. That's really much better. I do have a theory as to how this thing got so dirty, because there's really not supposed to be dirt in there. Things do go through a filter before it ends up in there. So I really think that this was all just due to a simple maintenance oversight. I of course got a new filter for it, and if you look at these filters, they have a little bypass valve in them. This means that if you don't service this and you don't change this filter, when the pressure builds up high enough, it's going to overcome that bypass and it's just going to flow through unfiltered. You leave it like that for long enough and you're going to get all that dirt coming straight into the reservoir and back out into the system. But before we put a filter in here, I just got to clean up these gasket surfaces. And by the way, here is the number for the hydraulic filter. But these are actually very Deutz specific apparently, so there's not a whole lot of crossover references. Wait a minute. The logo is going to be upside down. We can't have that. There we go. Now I just have to get this back down in here somehow. Haha, that was actually easier than expected. Nice. Now before I go ahead and put this whole block back on the tractor, we got to do something about these hydraulic hoses, because two of them have these extra long bits on them that I really don't want, along with all these homemade connections and stuff. So I got to get all this off and put some regular couplings on those. And also the other piece up here, this T-piece, that is where it went out to the front loader, so we got to get that cap off. Let's just start by cleaning this up a bit. I don't really see why they've had these extra long hoses on here. It definitely looks like some kind of farmer mod, because these fittings, they're not even for hydraulic stuff. I wonder if I am this lucky. I've had these couplers here sitting on my shelf for years. I don't even remember what I bought them for, but it actually looks like it might be the right size. Yes, nice. And I just happen to have two of them. That's exactly what I need for this. Sweet. All right, so I've been looking for a while now, and I didn't have quite the same luck trying to find a replacement for this bent T-piece that was on here. Turns out this is a bit of a weird thread, or actually the thread itself is not weird. It's an M20 by 1.5, but I don't have anything like that, and it's not really a common hydraulic size. They usually skip from, I think it's M18 up to M22. So this would be something I would have to special order at a hydraulic shop. So it's going to take a while. I'm not really bothered to wait for that. Besides, we can get to this later even when all of this is mounted. So it's not really a big deal. So for now, I just capped it off and we're just going to reuse this piece. And it's just going to have the same hose on here as well. It's already have the correct coupling on the other end. All right, so with that mostly sorted out, I think we are just about ready to put this back in, only I do want to test this one more time before we do. And this time I really would like to test it with some hydraulic pressure. I have been getting some fittings, so I should be able to get my hand pump on here now. Let's try and get this on here and see what it does with some actual hydraulic pressure. Well, looks like it was a very good idea to double check this, because now it's not working again. I can feel it does build like a minute amount of pressure and then it just drops as it just pops open and shoves it back into the return. So I'm thinking this valve in here must have been damaged by some of all that dirt. So there's no way around it. We got to look into that. Now, with all the dirt that was inside of this thing, there's probably a bunch of dirt in all this stuff as well. Feels like a spring. It was. That was more heavy than I thought. It looks like this top bolt is going all the way through and holding this pipe onto the back side of it. Can't really see that, but it's the pipe running into the corner there. And I believe we have to get this little nozzle thing out of here as well. But it's a bit of a weird shape, so I'm going to have to see if I can find something to fit into that flat socket. I think this is the widest regular flathead that I have. Let's see if it'll do the trick. It did. Cool. Yeah, this thing is covered in that greasy, dirty stuff as well. But from what I can tell, this cone shape that this has, that's really all that's holding this valve in place. There really shouldn't be anything holding it on the backside here either, other than that one pipe that we released with the long bolt. Because the lever down here, that's not really physically connected. It's just pushing in on this little bar there. So I think we're ready to try and push that thing out somehow. I don't really know how stuck this thing is going to be in there. Might be possible to pull it out the front with a slide hammer or something like that, but I don't really have any good way to get a good grip on it out there. So let's see if we can punch it out from back here. Although it might be a terrible idea, who knows? Turns out it was a great idea. Well, there we go. And much as I expected, this whole thing is covered in this dirty, muddy, rust-looking stuff. It's probably not good for it. There's really not a whole lot to it in there. This down here is where you're getting your pressure in, and that hole down there in the back, I believe that is where you're getting the pressure out to the valve that was in here. These big cuts on the side, that is the ports for the return. Can't really see, but the filter is right in there. And I believe that hole over there in the corner, that is where it's sending the pressure into the big cylinder out here. And you have the ports out here on the side as well. This one is where you're getting the pressure out to your external valves, and up there is the return coming into that port in there as well. Let's see if there's any visual clues as to what might be wrong with this thing. Well, actually, already, I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up. See if it'll focus. See the little valve in that hole? That seems to be what's opening up to the return line, and that looks pretty scratched in there. Well, whatever this is, that didn't move very smoothly. Well, I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to tell on camera, but I can see that these have definitely had some dirt in between these valves and the housing. They have some pretty bad scratch marks on them. That might be why they've been sticking, if dirt was getting in between this. Well, again, I don't really think I'm going to be able to show you this on camera, but I can definitely tell there's some pretty substantial scratch marks in these cylinders in there. It certainly had some gritty stuff running along with those little valves. So honestly, even if we do clean this out and get it working, it might be leaking, which will cause those lift arms to slowly drop down all the time. This is not ideal. So, you know what? I don't think I want to mess around with this thing anymore. I've already wasted too much time on this, and it's already shown to be questionable enough that I don't want to try and reinstall this stuff. The replacement valves for this are really not all that expensive. I think they're like 100, 150 euros, something like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and order a new one of those. Right, here we are, a couple of days later with a brand new valve. Should have probably just bought this from the get-go. Well, it looks correct. Apparently these valves are pretty much the exact same throughout the entire 06 series of tractor, and also for a few other models as well. Right, now before I just go ahead and plop that back in place, I have been thinking that maybe I should just open up the cylinder itself and have a look inside of there. If for nothing else, just to clean it out, because this will no doubt still have some oil in it, and that's going to be the same dirty, gritty oil that was in the rest of this thing. And the only way for that to get out otherwise is going to be back out through this valve, and I would rather not have that dirty stuff through my new valve. So let's just open this up and have a look. I'm thinking these holes are for putting a tool in to unscrew this end cap. That was easier than I thought it would be, not gonna lie. Actually, it wasn't all that much in there. But yeah, sure enough, there's a bunch of this dirty stuff in there as well. So it's a good thing we checked. Oh, and just for those of you who might be wondering, this chamber right here, that is what's being filled up with the pressurized hydraulic. And this thing in here, that is the back end of the piston. And when that is moving forward, it's pushing on this lever up here, lifting these arms in the back. Oh yeah, and there's another thing we could just quickly have a look at now that we can still see it. And that is this lever in the back that a few of you have questioned. This is for limiting the travel of these rear arms. So when I lift this handle up and rotate it, I'm practically just moving that big red block into the path of this lever over here. So it's going to come up and hit it, and you can just see down there it has a little relief valve. So when the arm is going to push into that, it's going to relieve the pressure of the piston so it will stop pushing. Otherwise it will just push right through everything. So with that lever turned, it will only move to right around there. So little less than halfway. And the reason you might want to limit the movement of these arms is, for instance, if you're running a tool with a PTO shaft out to it, you don't want to be able to accidentally lift this so high that you bend and break the PTO and everything else. So setting it up in this mode, you can still lift the thing off the ground, but it won't go so high that you damage something. Anyway, we got all of this stuff nicely cleaned up, so let's just go ahead and start putting things back together. Now, there is a seal on this end cap right here, and there's also a seal on the piston in there, but I didn't buy any new seals, so it is going to go back together with the same old ones. But honestly, this one looks like it's just fine, and I'm hoping that one in there is as well. As for my new valve, I don't think I could just shove it right in there. If we look at the old one, I can see that I actually managed to take a bite out of this O-ring, and the piece that's missing, that was sitting right in here. So it seems to be chipping on this enormous return port in the side there. It's supposed to go in and line up with that hole back there. But I noticed there's nothing in the bottom, and given that the valve is round, I might be able to rotate it 90 degrees, shove it in, and then rotate it over to where it's supposed to be. That way I'm gonna avoid that return port and get the O-ring up there. Thinking we might want to give things a squeeze of oil just to help it along. That did not just pop in there like I expected. Oh no, I see why. I'm already killing the O-ring. This might actually prove pretty difficult to get in there. Good thing I have more of those. Right. Maybe a little bit of rotating action. Right. I think we can rotate it at this point. That was a really tight fit getting that in there, but here's hoping that we didn't mess up any of the O-rings. There's really no way to tell. So let's just put it all back together and put some pressure on it and see what happens. Right, so everything should be back together. I have my little hand pump hook back on and filled that back up with oil. So let's just start putting some pressure into this and see what it does now. So we'll put this to lift and yeah, let's go. Oh, something's happening. I don't even know if you can tell on camera. This is probably the slowest tractor lift anyone's ever seen, but that's not the point. The arms are going up. Yes! And will they go back down? They sure will. It's all very slow right now, but it is working, I promise. All right, well, that makes me real happy. So it really was that little valve that was just not closing off properly. And I have no doubt now that it's simply because that thing has been eating too much dirt over the years. But now I feel much more confident putting this thing back on the tractor, so let's do that. And just one final little thing before I go and throw it back in here. These two pipes running down to and from the pump on the engine, they probably still have some of that nasty dirty oil in them, so I'm just going to go and blow those out and get as much of that out as I can so we don't go and just put that back into the system. I have a feeling this might make a bit of a mess. Yep, definitely made a mess. Let's just give it a quick cleanup. Don't know what this was sealed with previously, but it was very thin, so we're just going to give it a very thin coat of this. Just gonna get the bolt started so we have it in the right place. I remember my dad once told me that adjustable wrenches is something that only a farmer would use, so I guess I'm excused now that we're working on tractors. So that should be everything back together, so now we can go ahead and put some fresh fluid in this and test it out. I'm gonna spill this everywhere if I just dump it in with this. That's a bad idea. We'll do a little at a time, try and avoid that mess. Right, I got a sufficient amount in there now. There's no reason to fill it up all the way till we're sure that it works. So let's go ahead and test it out, see what happens. Well, what do you know? Some moron left the ignition on. Now there's bound to be some air in it, so it might be a little bit jittery and do some weird stuff, but let's see what it does. Oh yes! Here we go. Oh, that is so nice. All the way to the top, and it opened our relief valve in here. That is perfect. And back down. Just try this limit. Just try this limiter on the back. Right, there we go. It'll only move to that point now. Perfect. I don't have anything that will easily test these external outlets, but I can see they are moving, so there is some pressure going into them, and I can hear it on the engine as well. Getting pretty close to the lowest edge of this housing. Oh, I guess that low edge is right where we're supposed to be. Well, I tore up the gasket for this cover, but it wasn't really any good anyway, so we're gonna have to make a new one of those. And also the 4 bolts in the middle, the 2 down here and the 2 up here, they were supposed to be studs going all the way through, holding both this top cover and the seat mount. But they were gone. It just had regular bolts in it with some nuts on them as spacers, and it wasn't really ideal, so we're gonna have to make some new bolts for that as well. There we go. Not bad. And yes, I probably should have done some of this before filling this with oil. Well, I managed to not drop anything in there, so let's just hurry up and close it off. Got this thing nicely cleaned up as well. Right, so all we need now is that new seat to go on here. And well, we do also need to make some kind of holder for all these hydraulic couplings that we have back here. I think I'm gonna mount them up along this side somewhere. And we still have to do something about this whole missing top part of the 3-point hitch. We also have to reassemble and mount that lower trailer hitch. And we gotta remove these old cylinders from that front loader. And we have to fix that stop down on the fuel pump. And we gotta do something about that exhaust. We also have to get that parking brake working. I'm gonna need some mirrors on this. We also have to, you know what? We'll do 1 or 2 more videos on this because there's still a few things left to do. But I am really pleased that it was possible to fix the hydraulic issue on that rear lift. That really was my main concern when I got this machine, because without that rear lift, really half the functions of this tractor just aren't there. But once again, with this project, it seemed to be a little bit more involved than I initially imagined, so this video also got a little bit long. And even though you keep telling me you don't mind, I am gonna end this one here. So thank you all for watching along, and I'll see you in the next one.